Hello out there. Welcome to the Vortex. This would be Matt, one of the two dudes from Gallifrey.
And this would be Taylor, the other dude from Gallifrey.
What's going on, dude?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Yeah.
Hey, welcome everybody.
Welcome to episode 11.
11.
This is our April recap, so to speak.
and in honor of calling this episode 11, this is the podcast of the Doctor.
Yes, exactly.
We got a fun episode for you today. We got some exciting news, a couple of little things that are happening over at Doctor Who, and then afterwards, Taylor and I are going to discuss with you some of the fun that comes from the old Who and classic Who. We're going to go over the Troughton Era Cybermen stuff.
Yes, we will talk about the moon base and the Tomb of the Cybermen.
Dun, 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 dun.
Which I just watched recently, and it is amazing.
Amazing. Not even amazing. We had to add a letter.
Yes.
Amazing.
Amazing. It's great.
And last but not least, we'll have a question from a fan. So remember, we always need questions from you guys. I know at the top of the podcast we're going to mention this. Please send us your questions.
Yes.
Stuff we can ask on air, and
you'll
answer.
get a shout out and everything. So.
Yeah. It's always fun.
Alrighty.
So going right into it, we got some interesting news bits.
Yeah. As far as the show goes, season 8, there's been a lot of pictures and a lot of sort of filming going on in the woods.
In the woods.
Yeah. And we actually have a name of an episode, so this is really exciting.
Yes.
I
you know what?
I believe it's Mark Gatiss, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think is writing this one.
I have been excited for an episode like this from Doctor Who for a very long time. I think this has been an underused story for Doctor Who. We are getting the robots of Sherwood.
The robots of Sherwood. Yeah, so it's like a Robin Hood episode, which is kind of cool because Robin Hood is really a literary figure. He's not really like a historical figure.
Right. But he could be based on something.
From what I believe, he could be based on something. But it's interesting that they're drawing from that and like its history,
Maybe even the legend of Robin Hood will be created by the Doctor.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
See what I'm saying?
So we've seen a lot of filming. Clara in sort of Renaissance dress, and the Doctor's still just wearing what he wears.
Just his Doctor outfit.
Yes. And they're speaking to Robin Hood and all this stuff, and there's some filming of a scene, and they actually have some quotes from like the people they were filming from far away, like seeing what they're doing, and I guess they know. So I'm going to quick read this little short snippet, and we'll see what we think.
Yes.
All right.
Read the snippet.
There's some sort of there's some sort of crashing spaceship in the sky. The Doctor says, "Clara, if it crashes, it will wipe out most of England." Clara says, "What's the plan?" The Doctor says, "A plan? I've not always got a plan, Clara. I'm not made of plans." Robin Hood says, "You do have a plan." The Doctor says, "Yes, but almost certainly won't work." Clara says, "What are you suggesting?" The Doctor says, "The golden arrow, Clara. Here." He gives the bow and arrow to Robin Hood. Robin Hood says, "It has to be you, Doctor. My arm is injured." Clara says, You're good at it, Doctor. I saw you. You won the tournament." He says, "I cheated." She says, "What?" He says, "I cheated. I needed to win the tournament to get into the castle. While you were asleep, I made a special arrow with a homing device." "Oh, brilliant," says Clara.
It's a little bit of a sneaky, snarky Doctor.
Yeah. He fires, Robin fires the arrow. 5 seconds. The first assistant director gives a signal. Boom. And the crowd cheers very loudly. And then the Merry Men sing a song. So, yeah. It sounds fun, It
does sound fun.
Yeah.
How can you see? And this is the thing I don't understand. Doctor Who can be everything, but we haven't had a lot of fantasy episodes.
Right.
We haven't had a lot of episodes that really kind of play on, the fantasy of what could be. And he should meet literary characters that might have been, the people they were based on.
Right. I feel like they're getting a little more into fantasy. Like last season was a little more with with the ghost story and
right.
a couple other things like that. I feel like season 6 was like way sci-fi, like everything about it.
Super sci-fi.
Yeah, like the rebel flesh and the whole thing with Madame Kavorian and
well, even the pirates on the boat with the sea devil or the sea witch or whatever.
Yeah.
She ended up actually just being a hologram.
Yeah,
very sci-fi.
Yeah. So this sounds fun, and it, I could read this as Matt Smith too. Like it sounds like, it sounds like he could be saying these lines, which is the writing of obviously the Doctor. I wonder how when they write the episodes, if they just think, if they have just this thing in their head of he's the Doctor, they don't try to write too much
for the actual person.
Yeah, the person, and they kind of let the actor take it.
That would have to be hard because you writing for the Doctor is one thing, but if you have Eccleston as the Doctor, his responses are going to be so much different. You couldn't write Matt Smith's dialogue for Eccleston.
Eccleston
wouldn't read it right. He wouldn't read Matt Smith. And vice versa. I don't think Matt Smith could have pulled off some of the Eccleston moments.
Well, and that might be a Moffat kind of, a Russell T Davies kind of thing, because I feel like 10 could have said some of 9's lines. He could have just said them a little differently, as 10 says them. But yeah, like 9 and 11, they're so far apart.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. They do kind of feel. Yeah. I guess that shift into Moffat land has really kind of changed the writing of the Doctor, the feel of the Doctor.
Yeah, well, and this is the first time we're getting to see a new Doctor under Moffat, to see like the difference, or the similarities, basically.
Right. Well, according to Moffat, it is the same person.
Yeah.
Different face, but same
according
person.
To canon, it is.
Yeah. Well, there's that.
I would agree with that.
Other piece of news.
Yeah, that was that.
Moffat has come out and talking about the tomb on Trenzalore, trying to give a little bit of an explanation. I didn't think an explanation was needed. I thought it explained itself. People seem to be so caught up in the minutia of, but if you undo this and redo that, then suddenly this doesn't matter. Well, it does matter. It did happen. You know, the tomb on Trenzalore.
Yeah. I always thought they changed time. Like they changed the past.
Right. And I'll tell you this. People talk about the TARDIS. When you see the TARDIS on Trenzalore, and it's this huge TARDIS, because it's expanded, as the Doctor explained, and it's got the crack in the window, and he landed the TARDIS and cracked the window. They're like, well, why wasn't it cracked later? Is that a sign that the TARDIS got better, so that TARDIS couldn't be there then? Most of Doctor Who and the time travel stuff is based on perception. The perception of the reality around you.
Right.
Whenever they do multi-Doctor episodes, the older Doctors always look older, but it's assumed that it's still in their timeline, even though they would have regenerated when they looked younger. So it's really just the perception of the reality. If the Doctor's meeting another Doctor from the past, that older Doctor's going to look older because it's in a future time frame. So the reality around them's in that Doctor's future, so that older Doctor would look older. Doesn't mean that didn't happen. Doesn't mean that. So the same thing with the TARDIS. The TARDIS crash lands, and we're experiencing it through the Doctor's reality of that time. So the TARDIS he sees naturally would have the same kind of broken window that the TARDIS did when it landed on Trenzalore. That doesn't mean that it isn't going to be there at the end of the Doctor's life, or it isn't going to get buried there. It just means that when we were there at that time, we saw that reality.
Right.
That's been my. I know we haven't actually said what Moffat said, but this has really gotten under my skin about this. We have Whovians who are complaining about how can this stuff happen. I'm like, guys, it's a time traveling alien from another planet that regenerates.
That's not. You can't. That can't be the excuse for everything.
This is the one thing you don't get. I know I use that a lot, but come on, suspension of disbelief only goes so far. But still, it encompasses all of
we've talked about. We've talked about this a little bit. In the fact that when Clara and the Great Intelligence do go into the timeline, they don't see 12 or any future Doctors, right? She only sees 11 to 1, and so it's just the crack or the fissure is just of his life from then to the beginning.
Right. It's his first regeneration cycle.
Right. So it's interesting that maybe, that fissure was created when he had his super rock and roll regeneration.
Generation of doom.
Yeah. I feel like that would create a time fissure, and maybe, because it was kind of up high, he was up in the tower, so maybe that's where it was. And, maybe any survivors built a monument to him. Maybe it's a giant TARDIS.
Now, a lot of people have complained. They said, well, he left, and he didn't just. The planet wasn't destroyed, but he left, right? And they said, well, how did it get destroyed like that? Well, how do you think he left? You think the rest of the aliens of the universe are just going to wait around and see what he does next? No, they're going to converge on that planet of what's left there, and they're going to blow it away. The Doctor ran away from it.
Well, see, and one thing we're forgetting is they just, like, the end of the last episode is when he regenerates, and when next season starts, we've been told that they're going to kind of start at that point. So we could still have a little bit of Trenzalore to go, and so we could see what happens to that planet.
Right, and I'm sure there'll be an explanation. Yeah. Moffat is not a man who doesn't explain things.
Well, speaking of explanations,
so what was his explanation?
Here's his explanation. And it's kind of funny because he kind of does it in the form of the Doctor. He says, I've often wondered about that. Fortunately, late one night, the Doctor turned up in person and explained it to me. He says, changing time is tricky. It's a bit like a detective story, so as long as there isn't an actual body, you've got a certain amount of wiggle room. For instance, if the body has, rather conveniently, been burned on a boat in Utah. Here's the thing. I can change the future so long as the future has not been already established as part of my own past. I can't rescue Amy and Rory because I already know that I didn't. But what I do know about what do I know about Trenzalore? There's a big monument that looks very like my TARDIS. There's a temporal fissure leading to my timeline. Maybe it's my grave. Maybe one day it's my burial ground. Maybe it's something else entirely, and we got it all wrong. Don't know. Don't plan out to find out for as long as possible. The main thing is, Clara still jumped into my time stream and ended up helping me through all my life. All that is established, unchanged, but there's wiggle room.
So, I mean, that's a great explanation.
Yep.
Wibbly wobbly, timey wimey.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it doesn't need to be. I don't feel like it really hinges on everything happening. Yes, if it wasn't there, how did Clara do the thing? But obviously, it was there. They were just.
Because Clara did the thing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the Doctor
How do you know it was there? Because she did.
The Doctor was assuming that was his TARDIS.
Right.
That had grown, but maybe that wasn't exactly what it was.
Keep in mind, too, the Doctor's age. He's an old man. This is the end of his life anyway. 11 was the end of his regeneration cycles. He felt like he knew it all. So maybe this is him seeing something and saying, I already know the answer. Well, he might not know the answer. But that's the point,
That's Doctor Who right there. You may not actually know the answer.
Okay. So, and one other piece of news that I've got here, I'm sure you do too. Matt Smith has been cast in a new trilogy for Terminator.
Ooh.
Going from one time travel property to another, my friend.
Yeah. And he's like kind of a main character, right? He's kind of a big role, is what I heard.
As far as I know, they haven't said who. He says the pretty small role in the first film, but he's going to grow to a bigger role in the second.
For the trilogy, yeah, it's a big role
for the trilogy. Yeah.
Well, interesting.
Good.
I wonder if he'll be a Terminator, he'll be a robot or something, or he'll be.
Or he could be. He could be. He might be maybe one of the scientists.
Who helps. Is he going to do an American accent? Is he going to do
a British
accent in it? What's his character? That's kind of interesting to see. I'm not too into Terminator, but I've seen some of the movies, and I'd be interested to see what he's doing in this. So,
right. Yeah. Well, I'd like to see little nods to everything he's done before.
Oh, of course, yeah.
And I'd like to see, it's a thing with Doctor Who cast as they go on to do other things. They bring characters, or actors, I should say, from other properties from Doctor Who with them. So maybe we'll see Karen Gillan. Maybe we'll see David Tennant or Jack Harkness. Maybe we'll see any number of former actors and actresses. I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah, that would be neat. Well, I know David Tennant is going to do sort of the American version of Broadchurch.
Oh, is he doing the American version?
Yeah, he's doing it over here. So he's doing an American accent, and from what I've heard.
That's really cool.
So that should be interesting. Yeah.
All right. Do you have anything else for news, my friend?
Well, the only other thing I had was Moffat just kind of hinted that the story between Clara and the TARDIS, sort of their relationship, wasn't over yet. There was still a little bit more to that. It almost seemed like it was over. It almost seemed like they just kind of didn't get along at first, and then at the end of sort of after Hyde, they sort of they worked together and saved the Doctor from the Pocket Universe, and they'd sort of gotten along, and that was about it.
Why didn't they get along at first, though?
But apparently, apparently there's more, so
all right.
We will see.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's exciting, actually.
That is, because the one thing with Clara is it seemed like she had her storyline, right? Where it was, who is she? Why is there more copies of her? And now we know. So it's like, well, what else is going on? What else are we going to do with Clara?
Maybe her stepping into the fissure of the Doctor's life had more effects than just her existing as all these different versions of people throughout his life.
Right.
Maybe, in fact, she has, maybe she did those ripples travel to the future. Maybe those ripples traveled throughout Capaldi's time. We don't know. Maybe the TARDIS senses that. That'd be interesting.
The funny thing about that is every time someone sees a shot of Jenna Coleman in like a period where they're like, oh, maybe it's another Echo, and you're like, no, you're just stop here.
No.
It's Clara. She's dressed up for the
for the episode.
Yes, exactly.
Until we see two Claras in two different outfits standing next to each other.
Right.
I mean, she could be Batman. I don't know.
Or like a Clara with a goatee, maybe. No.
Oh my God! Alternate universe Clara.
Or an eye patch. Yeah, exactly.
An eye patch. No, Clara, not you
Clara,
too.
She lost an eye.
An eye drive.
Yeah. So yeah, that's all the news. And that's that's the way.
And now you know the rest of the story.
All right. Well.
All right. On to
our boredom. We've been bored. And so we've been watching some classic Who. I'm kind of gotten into Troughton now. I've gotten pretty far. I basically have finished the first season, which is there's not much to finish there.
I was gonna say you got through a season really quick.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's only like one or two stories that are available, and we watched one of them already. We watched the Moonbase together about a month ago, and then I've kind of read up on all the other episodes, what they were, and then I just started. So the next season of him starts with the Tomb of the Cybermen, which is what I just watched, and yeah, pretty good.
Yeah.
I really liked it.
One of the things I've been remarking about Troughton, and something I've kind of learned over the last year or so, and I think you have too, is that now that we're into a second Doctor, I think they felt like they needed to bring stuff back in a way that we could see him face those classic villains again, so you could kind of get a reestablishment of who the Doctor is. His first story, though we don't have it, is the Doctor versus the Daleks.
Right,
which is
evil of the Daleks, I think.
Right, and that's such an important classic villain. And then right out of the gate, you also get within the first season the Moonbase.
Right,
but he just faced the Cybermen for the first time as Hartnell in Hartnell's End, at the end of Hartnell. So now
it's like only 3 or 4 stories apart.
Right, and so it's unique in that aspect that like now you really have a comparison. The Daleks were his first villains, besides Cro-Magnon Man, honestly.
Right.
And then the Daleks were the first villains, and so he faces them right away. And then within so many stories, he faces what his last villain was. So I think they were really trying to push this. This is the Doctor. And that's what I liked so much about the Moonbase. Was that it gave us an opportunity to see the Cybermen again, to see them anew. They didn't have the gigantic flashlight of doom on their chest.
Yeah, and the voice was different.
Yeah, they didn't
it was more low. It was more low, kind of what we're used to now. That
right.
if you will be like us.
Right. Yeah. But the Moonbase was interesting for me.
Moonbase was good. We had it confused last month on the podcast. This is the one with the station that controls the weather.
Right. It's the Ice War. The first Ice Warriors one is the station. That's the teleporter.
Right. The 10th planet. Yeah. Well, when we were talking about the 10th planet, we said it was the weather. The 10th planet. It was just some kind of Arctic station where they were monitoring the.
It wasn't that space defense though. Wasn't that what it was? Because they were.
Oh yeah.
That was space defense. This is the Moonbase is with they control the weather.
Yeah, with the graviton, the graviton.
Right.
Beam, and they just like hold all the hurricanes and stuff into the ocean and make sure they don't come to the land, which is kind of an interesting thought. I feel like that would really screw up the planet, though, don't you think? Like,
well, this was the 1960s.
I don't, I'm not a scientist, but
I'm not a weatherman, but I play one on TV, and I can tell you. Well, and then it's we won't get into the Ice Warriors this week, but the two Ice Warrior ones. The first Ice Warrior is on another planet, but it's like Pluto or Neptune or something. Yeah. But it's also at a station which regulates something on Earth, and then the second Ice Warriors is on the moon where they have a base that controls all the teleporting, the transmatting. So Troughton's Era is just filled with villains trying to invade the moon.
Yeah.
And little stations.
Right. Well, so on the moon base, they come and they basically there's a sickness going around. It's kind of hitting randomly, and the Cybermen are abducting people from the sick bay, and I guess making them into cyber puppets or Cybermen.
Well, they should.
And they're just trying to take over the graviton beam so that they can sort of basically hold the Earth hostage and take over the Earth. I really like the end where I guess there were a bunch of Cybermen on a ship somewhere, and they all come out and they come marching towards the moon base, and they just release the graviton beam on them, and they all float away.
That was the solution.
Yeah. They're just like, oh.
to be fair, the 10th Doctor sort of did the same thing to the Cybermen and the Daleks on Earth at
right,
Canary
sucked
Wharf.
them all into the void, exactly.
Sucked them in. So his strategies haven't really changed much.
No.
Shoot them into space.
Into space.
I
Tomb of the Cybermen.
Like the Jamie story.
Oh, go ahead. Oh, yeah. Well, he didn't do much. He was just sick.
He made a really big jump in the beginning. They landed and they were in spacesuits, and he jumped really far, and he fell, and he hurt himself.
Right.
I don't know if maybe Fraser Hines just didn't want to do those episodes or what, but he was out pretty much the whole story.
Yeah. He kind of came in at the end, but he didn't even do anything. Mostly right. Ben and Polly were there in this one too, and they were.
That's right.
They're still there, so they were helping. They were doing experiments trying to figure out where the sickness was coming from.
Yeah.
They eventually found out it was the sugar, because that's how it was hitting randomly. Because not everybody takes sugar in their tea and stuff like that. So it's like,
that's right.
Make it a British thing, they always. Everything is about tea.
Well, it makes you afraid to have sugar in your tea.
Yeah, exactly. I
don't want that to happen to me. I don't want to become a Cyberman. The moon base was good. It was a good reintroduction of the Cybermen. I guess what I never understood was, were they just survivors from Mondas?
I guess so, yeah. I mean, I don't think... Yeah, I don't know. They must have been survivors from Mondas. They don't really... Well, when we get to the Tomb of Cybermen, they talk about how basically they probably sent some Cybermen off, to look for before they came to the moon base, and before they were looking at, oh, we have a twin planet, let's take it over. Maybe they'd sent some people out to try to find somewhere else where they could go, because they knew their planet was dying.
Right.
So in the Tomb of the Cybermen, it's basically that they had sent this group off, and there's a tomb where they're all they're frozen and waiting. So they could be anywhere, I guess.
Right.
Little colonies that they sort of sent out.
So I guess that kind of moves us on to the Tomb of the Cybermen. You just watched it recently. It's been a little bit since I've seen it. Yeah, no, it's really good. Let's see, Ben and Polly had just left in the Power of the Daleks was the last episode. It was the Power of the Daleks. And actually they left in the one before that, which is the Faceless Ones. The Faceless One.
Which is some chameleon people, and they can change. They kind of take the form of other people. But anyway, they left because they were sort of in modern day, so they decided to leave, and I guess they got together or whatever. I didn't really catch it exactly, but I think they just left. They were like, thanks for the adventure, and they leave. And then we're introduced to Victoria in Power of the Daleks, and her father sort of was maybe one of the people who was helping the Doctor, and he dies. And so she goes with the Doctor and Jamie.
Yeah.
So it's Victoria and Jamie are the companions. They go to this planet where there's this just sort of expedition going on, where they're looking for the tomb of the Cybermen,
Right, as if they had been buried there.
It's that old story where they're all like, Well, the Cybermen have been they all have been wiped out for 500 years.
Right. There's no chance.
We just want to find out why. It's like, well, no, don't do that. You're just poking around where you shouldn't be.
There's a bear.
Yeah.
You're poking it.
You're going to poke it. So anyway, it was really good. There's a good scene at the beginning. Oh, and here's the thing, too. This is the first one where it's the new opening. New opening titles, where it's got his face and everything in it. And the new, text of the title. So they kind of switched that around, which is neat.
This was the beginning of his second season, right?
His second season, yeah.
So and season 5.
And it's cinematically better, there was a lot of... the scene in the TARDIS, I'll tell you, it's a lot different. Usually the scene in the TARDIS has looked somewhat like a sitcom, where it's like the set, the 3-walled set, and they're all standing there, and, it's maybe 4 camera angles or something. Right. This was like a 1-camera thing, in the TARDIS, and, close-ups on their faces and stuff. I mean, it was really good. And he kind of explains to Victoria, this is my TARDIS. It's been my home, and it travels through time and space. And she laughs, and he's like, "No, really, seriously." And then she asks how old he is. Now, this is the first time he's talked about how old he is, and he says he's about 450 in Earth terms. About 450 years old. So.
Well, and that makes some sense too. If we look at some of the more modern stuff, they talked about he was 90 years old, just a child, by Time Lord standards, when he sealed a rift in time and space in the Medusa's Cascade. So that could have been about the time that he looked into the Vortex. To the what do they call it?
The untempered schism.
The untempered schism. Thank you.
Right.
So for his first regeneration, he probably died at about 300.
Yeah, I'm thinking.
300.
Well, yeah. So the questions arise is like, well, how long was he the first Doctor? How long has he been the second Doctor so far?
Right. Yeah, because he doesn't always. Sometimes his timeline, we see him in these serials, but he went off and did other adventures.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, it's interesting. To see that, and the whole thing with the first Doctor, his body just wore thin, so. How long does it need to... How long can you stay in one regeneration before you get old? You look like an old man, and then your body wears thin. Who knows? So
well, and the older Doctors could last a lot longer. Clearly, the 11th Doctor
11
was
he
on
lasted about
for
almost 2,000 years.
Yeah, well, no, not that long, but yeah,
it was a lot. It was 1,000 something, I think.
Yeah, he's like 1,000 when he starts it, and then he's there for 300 years till Clara returns, and he's kind of old, and then she leaves again, and she comes back, and it's been another 1,000 years or whatever. So he's like 2,000 by the time he regenerates. So, I mean, what is the length of an actual regeneration? Are younger regenerations shorter?
Right. Well, especially if they wear thin. That phrase makes me think that nothing really happened to him. The first Doctor, it was just the end of that regeneration. It was time to change because his body needed to. So that's an interesting concept that they haven't really talked about much. And the same with the War Doctor. I mean...
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, how long did the War Doctor fight for the war?
Right. And maybe his body wore thin faster because he went through war and went through all sorts of timey-wimey things that maybe aged him a little faster. And who knows? Right.
Well, and the first Doctor had to deal with Ian and Barbara and Susan for so long, so maybe he just got tired of them.
Yeah.
Zing!
You're giving me gray hairs!
Indeed, my dear. Possibly.
Chatterton.
One of the things I remember fondly about the Tomb of the Cybermen, one of the things I love a good mystery that sort of unfolds. I always love when they do a haunted house episode of a show. When you're sort of uncovering the house for the first time. And every place is kind of scary, and you don't know what the next turn is going to bring, and then eventually it all comes to a head. But the Tomb of the Cybermen, for me, unveiled like that. It was a big mystery that kept chiseling away in new pieces to it until eventually you got the whole story.
Right. They kept they were trying to open the hatch to get. It was almost like Lost.
Yeah.
They were trying to open the hatch to get into the tomb, and then they open it up, or they open up the hatch, and then there's sort of an evil group that has infiltrated the expedition.
Right.
And their whole plan was to unfreeze the Cybermen and try to use them stupidly, because the Cybermen don't take nothing from nobody. They do whatever they want. And so, yeah.
I want that to be a bumper sticker on a Cyberman spaceship. We don't take nothing from nobody.
We don't take nothing from nobody. We break nothing. So, yeah, and so, you know, they're like, "What are you doing, you fool?" And he opens it up, and they have a henchman, and there's a woman who's helping them too. And this whole thing of there's a cyber controller in this one, so there's like a boss Cyberman. Usually, it's just been like a group of Cybermen. One of them maybe speaks more than the others, but they don't really talk. This is the first time there's like a cyber controller, and he looks a little different, and you know, he's the boss.
Well, that's something that persists. They always have a cyber leader.
Yeah, that carries on now.
Forward. Yeah. And even in the later Doctor Who's with like Colin Baker, he has a gigantic head. The cyber leader does.
Yeah,
a big old egg dome right on top.
Yeah, this one had like a weird, basically Conehead looking head.
Yeah, they do that a lot. It's weird.
Yeah.
I think that the Cyberman stuff is really, it's good. I know a lot of people that really love them or hate them. Same thing with the Daleks, but I think Cybermen are best when you have no idea what's happening. The scene with the Cybermen really gives you that.
And you can you can have a really good, so far what I've seen with the old stuff is you can have a really exciting Cyberman episode, and same with Daleks, and then you can have a really boring Cyberman or Dalek episode. I feel like the Moon Base was okay, but the Tomb of the Cybermen was great.
It's way better.
The Daleks, the Daleks. The very first one's good. There's a couple on later where I'm just like, I mean, I love the Daleks, but they're just, it's just kind of slow action because they just roll around. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not much happens. I mean, there's a couple of them that I'm just like, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's all in how it's written too. They're great villains, but you got to write them right, or they're not going to be. I don't know. They're not going to be as good. I don't know.
I think you're right. No, I think you're right. There are really good Cybermen episodes, and there are really bad ones.
You can't just rely. You can't just rely on the villain or on the creature or whatever.
Right.
To carry the story.
Look at it in the modern Who stuff, in New Who. The best Cybermen episodes are the ones at Christmas. When they put him in the next Doctor, when they put the Cybermen at Christmas time in Victorian London, my God, that was the best Cybermen episode.
Yeah, that one was really good.
They just fit perfectly.
Yeah, and the Daleks Take Manhattan, probably the worst Dalek episode of New Who. It's not very good.
No, Spider-Man was there. So.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was. He should have saved the day.
Yeah, he didn't. He died.
Yeah. He died?
Did he? Or did he just run away?
I don't think he died. I don't know. I'll have to watch that again. I don't remember. I don't think he died, but he was there at the end. He was in the theater.
Andrew Garfield, who plays Spider-Man in the Amazing Spider-Man films, was in the Daleks Take Manhattan episode.
Yeah. He was in the theater at the end there with them, I think.
Was he?
I
don't think he was.
Martha,
I thought he was gone by then.
And Tallulah.
I can't remember for the life of me. I can't remember what happened to him. Dang it. Now I'm going to have to go back and rewatch that episode. And it's not my favorite episode.
I just have to. I just have to go back.
I have to know. Can't possibly read the wiki on it.
No.
I'm going to watch it.
So yeah, Tomb of the Cybermen. It's the first introduction also of the Cybermats.
The Cybermats.
Which are kind of fun. They have these little eyes, and little furry bottom, the bottom of them, little little kind of a mop or something. Yeah.
Like a mop. Cybermats. When your floor needs a mopping, they come a-calling.
The Cyber Swiffer.
The Cyber Swiffer. Was it the Roomba? It's the Cyber Roomba.
This floor
Guaranteed
is
to
filthy.
Clean your house. And convert you to cyberism.
I thought I told you to wipe your feet.
Attack mode engage.
Yes. So, another thing I'm finding about Troughton is he's hilarious.
Is he though?
One's funny, but so far two has been really, really funny. And I don't know if it's the writing or if it's the way he's doing it, but some of the things he's doing is really, really good. There's a lot of funny lines in this episode, this story. There's the whole there's this line later where Victoria's worried about her skirt being too short, like, and he's like, "Oh, don't worry about that. Look at Jamie's, you know." And Jamie's wearing a kilt, obviously. So, well, it's just a lot of good stuff. And one that stuck out to me that was really funny was that really like has sort of been. I was like, "That's the Doctor right there." It was like something that I've seen throughout all the newer Who and some of the older stuff. Is he goes he stops the Cybermats from attacking them by throwing this like electric wire down on the ground, and they all sort of short out. And he says, "I guess you could say they had a complete metal breakdown." And Jamie goes, "Ooh," like that was a bad joke. And he goes, "Oh, sorry, Jamie." It's just, I mean, just that pun. I mean, I was like, "That's it. That's beautiful." It was so funny.
I will say that Troughton is a lot funnier than Hartnell because Troughton's more of a clown.
Well, right, yeah. I mean, he's kind of. I mean, even the way he's dressed, he's sort of the big clothes and the
right. Kind of goofy.
He's got the flute.
Haircut.
Yeah. Recorder. I said
flute. It's a jazz flute, a recorder.
And now for the sultry sounds of
Doctor Who.
Doctor Who.
I will say they use more gimmicks with Hartnell than they did with Troughton. Like Hartnell there had to be a reason for stuff. With Troughton, it's like they're just landing places just for giggles. You know?
Well, yeah, there was no real. It's one of those things where in the Tomb of the Cybermen they're in the TARDIS like talking. Like Victoria's, it's her first time being there, so they're introducing her to the TARDIS and everything. And then it cuts, and it's the expedition, and they're like blowing a hole in a mountain to see, like, oh, there it is, and we found it. And and then all of a sudden, the three of them just like show up from around the corner, like around the mountain. Yeah. They're like, hey, and they're like, wait, stop there. You know, we didn't see them get out of the TARDIS. We didn't see them go, oh, let's land here. You know, where are we? They just showed up.
Well, and all of Troughton's Doctor feels like that. There's a few times like. So, like at the end of the Tomb of the Cybermen, you see they switch on the scanner to sort of see like what's around them or what. I don't know. I don't remember if they're predicting what they were going to see or if they were just looking outside or whatever. But they see a claw. It's the claw of the Macra. That's how you know the next episode is going to be the Macra. But then, like they did the same thing for the Ice Warriors, where the episode before they turned it on and they saw lava coming towards them. So at the beginning of the Ice Warriors episode. You see this lava coming down towards the TARDIS, and they have to turn on the emergency protocols that whisk them away, and they don't know where they're going to go. But outside of stuff like that, it seems like all of Troughton's era is he doesn't have any control over it. He's just having the TARDIS fly somewhere. He's not even picking it. Yeah. It's just happening. And he comes out and like he'll be like, okay, well, ooh, looks like we're on the moon this time. And, oh, hey, there's a moon base over there. Jamie, don't jump. And or
Jamie,
right, old Jamie. Or he'll land on a ice planet and be like, "Hey, we're on an ice planet. Hey, look, there's an ice planet base over there. You know, oh, Jamie, don't jump." And or they land on the Cybermen, on Tellus, and they're like, "Oh, hey, we're on Tellus, and hey, look, there's an expedition blowing a hole in there. And hey, Jamie, hold my hand." And it's like, but it's always random. It's wherever they land.
Right.
It's just random.
Right.
Which is great because
that's fun. I tend to enjoy those like next time gags sometimes. Yeah. Like there's one where they're like they look in and he goes, Hartnell goes, yes, this is definitely the future. Yes, I know it is for sure. And he walks out, and then like it like sort of close up on the scanner, like a caveman is sort of walking, and it says Doctor Who and the Savages. It's kind of funny.
I like when they do those gimmicks.
Yeah, those are good.
But it always felt like Hartnell at least knew where he was going.
Well, I don't know. I wouldn't say he knew where he was going, but he would always check.
Yeah.
Like before going outside, like, and
sure.
it was always a thing. So far, Troughton's just kind of walked outside and been like,
he's like, whatever, we'll be fine. It's not like there's going to be Ice Warriors, Cybermen, Macra, or Daleks out here. No!
No.
Those
Jamie, don't jump.
four things. Time and time again.
Yeah.
So
I'm enjoying it, and I'm ready to go on. I got some Ice Warrior stuff to watch, and
yes, and in fact, that's what we're going to be bringing up next week. Are going to be the Ice Warriors.
Or next month.
Next month, sorry. Yes.
Yeah.
Next time. That's what we're going to be bringing up next time. Will be the Ice Warriors.
It'll be pretty exciting.
That is exciting.
All right, so now it's time for
Fun questions. I like yours.
Okay. I have a lot of questions. Actually, I have a couple that I can read.
Pick two.
Now
Just
I
two.
asked. Well, one of them we can just do because it's not very.
Okay.
I asked, ask us anything. So anything. So someone asked me, what is the price of eggs in China? I looked it up.
That's a good Doctor Who question for a Doctor Who podcast, and I think that requires serious research.
Well, see, I asked this. I said, ask us anything. So then you could ask us about us, about whatever, anything other. Like, did you guys like Amazing Spider-Man 2 or whatever? They ask us things like that.
Yeah.
So he asked me what the price of eggs are. I looked it up. It's about $3. So now you know.
$2.99.
Maybe. I don't know how they do it over there.
Okay.
Okay. That was from Cameron Johnson. So there you go, Cameron. You're all ready to go buy eggs in China.
It's fantastic.
I have a question from Elizabeth Dunlap. She asks, which actors was the best Doctor and companion duo? So who do we think is the best duo together?
Ooh, that's a good one. I'm gonna go ahead and say Tom Baker and Elizabeth Sladen. So 4 and Sarah Jane.
Yeah, I've heard that they're great together, and I'm excited to get there. But
that would be my estimation. But you're right; you haven't seen that stuff yet. So
no, if I would say New Who, I would probably say, like Ten and Donna were really good together, and I really enjoyed their dynamic and sort of the comedy between them.
Those two had they had something, a shtick that only they had.
Yeah, they did, which is why they continue to work together.
Oh yeah,
just after that
they left
stuff
too.
and Shakespeare and stuff.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed 11 and Clara so far. I mean, I enjoyed their dynamic as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I had to pick, I would probably say 10 and Donna.
10 and Donna. All right. Yeah, I can see that too. Since we haven't gotten to 4 for you yet, yeah. Out of everything you have seen.
Let me do this. Let me see. The first
Jamie.
Doctor, I would have to say my favorite companion for him was Vicky.
Okay.
She was a girl who was from the future, and she sort of helped him sort of get over Susan, and it was really sweet, and they kind of were sweet together, and kind of fun. And she was really smart too, so she'd be like, now wait, she really had a lot to bring to the table about stuff that was like more futuristic that maybe Barbara and Ian had no idea.
Sure.
So far with 2, I guess Jamie, honestly. I mean, he's the only one. But they seem to have this real buddy relationship so far.
2 and Jamie are classic. Like they've talked about how those two were best friends.
Yeah. And they've been great. So yeah, I mean that's what I'd say so far. I haven't seen any others, so I don't know.
Fair enough.
Okay, and my last question I have is from a friend of mine. This is Jason Rosenstengel. He's kind of being a stinker, so let's listen to this question. It's a long one.
Okay.
He says, is Doctor Who constantly traveling through time because he is constantly changing the course of history / the future, thus creating a universe that has no stable timeline, therefore creating many alternate universes that create an ever-paradoxic rift in the space-time continuum, to the point that he has effectively destroyed the course of time as we know it, and can only sustain himself by jumping around in the skewed universes that he has created due to his irresponsible acts?
The answer to that is yes. And I do believe we've seen the result of that in The Name of the Doctor.
Right. Yes. That's. I mean, he's trying to give me a crazy question, but yes.
Sure.
There is some of that in there. I mean, it's. At first, he was traveling because he didn't want to be, in Gallifrey anymore. But as we've come to see more in the New Who, he's messed with time a lot, and he's kind of messed up with some stuff, and tried to change things. And yeah, I mean, it's had some consequences.
Right. Well, and according to Who mythology, whenever the Doctor lands in a time, he becomes a part of those events. He's like an anchor. He's placing his time stream there. So if you think of the universe as having one time stream, And then you think of the Doctor being a second time stream, and probably every person being their own time streams. As the Doctor lands somewhere, he starts crossing all those time streams together. And maybe that's more, you're right, it is fairly destructive that he's constantly affecting time, bending it in different ways.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, it's also, maybe it's very responsible. Maybe for him doing that, he's helping to guide the universe where it needs to be.
Well, and one thing we forget is that the villains sometimes are time traveling, and they're trying to change the past. They're trying to do something that hadn't originally happened, and he stops them. So there's that too. This is my friend who started to watch the show, and he kind of quit on it. Now, if he's listening, I don't know if he's listening, but if he had watched the show, he would know that time is not a strict progression of cause to effect.
It is, in fact.
He would know it is a big ball
of wibbly-wobbly,
timey-wimey
stuff.
So, there you go. That's the answer to that question.
That sentence kind of got away from you there.
Yeah. Yeah, it did. All right. Well.
Hey, listen. We appreciate you listening to our podcast. All of you out there.
This was a fun one.
We apologize.
We really talked about some good stuff.
Everything, and we thank you for everything.
Yes, thank you. So yeah, check us out. We're on Tumblr, Voices of the Vortex, Facebook. Look for us on Facebook. Twitter, we're at Vortex Podcast, and we're on Google Plus too. And we're pretty much everywhere. So
we're pretty much everywhere. Come visit us at our homes.
Search for us on Google. I mean, you'll find us really the first thing. So.
Hey, listen, join us next time when Taylor and I discuss the Ice Warriors of Troughton Era. Dun, dun, dun.
All right, everyone. Have fun, and remember, Jamie, don't jump.
Don't jump.
Don't jump, Jamie.
Hold my hand.
Yes.
See you guys.
Right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Goodbye.